Quilt makers and applique artists alike, are you excited to get started on block number 6 from Dog Park by McKenna Ryan, this amazing raw edge applique block of the month presented by Stitchin Heaven and yours truly, Rob Appell, quilt maker. Are you ready for this, folks? Let's get started. That's right, folks. Well, welcome back to another great tutorial here on YouTube by Stitchin Heaven. I am Rob Appell, working on McKenna Ryan's amazing Dog Park block of the month. This is a great raw edge applique project, and you're using our pre-fused, prepared, amazing pieces to just kind of almost like quilt or paint by numbers. And I'm hoping it's going as well for you as it is for me now. I won't dismiss the fact that some of us got off to a bit of a challenging start. So if you haven't quite started yet, like seriously, folks, I'm going to really encourage you to dive in on one of the more current months. Maybe somebody like these silly guys last month riding around on the merry-go-round. It's a lot larger pieces, a little bit easier to handle. And of course, I've got a video each and every month to go along. Now we're doing the bench warmers this month. It's going to be super fun. And we've got a series of great dogs hanging out on the bench over here. But because we had so many layers, I've actually gotten a pretty good head start, spent a couple of hours actually building out our background by layer after layer, remembering and or looking, well, maybe I'm getting going a little bit too fast, but at the different pieces and parts so we know how to present the fabrics so that we get the perspective. I did get going a little too fast. Let's talk about what we're working on. We are, like I said, building out some great fun dogs into our park landscape today. Month number 6, the bench warmers. We always have a color code that comes with each month and the fabrics that are pre-cut. Go ahead and check out this little picture if that helps. I also like sometimes referring to the catalog that came with it. And of course, if you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, folks, please go ahead and hit that QR code that came with your first month's kit so that you can go ahead and join the wonderful Facebook group that we're having. All kinds of fun. Fabric keys if you need, subscribe to the newsletter, and it's just a great way to be part of our community at Stitchin Heaven. Now, as a reminder, you've been provided with both the cutting and the placement guides. So I'm using a placement guide to build my parts and pieces because the cutting guide was handled by getting the kit. This month we have 2 different pages, but on page 1 of bench warmers, I want to remind you that we're going to cut our background from the variegated fabric. I have my lighter fabric, or my lighter version, excuse me, of the fabric at the bottom. And this is 24 and a half. Boy, the coffee just kicked in, didn't it? 24 and a half by 14 and a half. And like I said, I paid attention to the way that the colors lay out in the variegation, so I can have light below, dark above for my wonderful like willow tree there, and then the shadows of the bench that's created. So that information's on page 1. And then I'm going to mostly be working now off of page 2 as we get started. And I am going to jump ahead using techniques that I've provided in the last few months, block of the months, where I've truly used my applique sheet on top of a light table, on top of the pattern to create the different individual units. And I want to talk about applying the bandana and a couple different things that we've been working on and the different parts and pieces. As you can see, I've not completely assembled all of our dogs for this month yet. So as we dive back into our placement guide, I want to point out it was pretty dang easy to start and get, well, I started in the corner with the bush and the bottom shadows. And the way I knew that is I came to the guide and I looked and I could confirm that everything laid on top of the tree, the background pieces, and the shadow, with the exception of this corner of this bench, had the corner of the bush on top of it, as you can see here. So then I went ahead and with utilizing my layering techniques, I started to place the bush, ironed it down, leaving this edge unattached so I could still slide my bench underneath. And I built my bench on the fusible, on the pressing sheet on top of the light table because it was so intricate. That way it could stay nice and accurate. So really this month I've done more layering than any of the months prior. Let's talk about this upper portion of the tree, the weeping willow, I believe it is. And I just love the way McKenna designs. Each and every intricate piece has something to do. Now, I remind myself that sometimes when I'm cutting using tweezers and scissors to get those little pieces that are so intricate, but it is amazing. Okay, so you received from us at Stitchin Heaven 2 different pieces of fabric with the background foliage cut, right? Pre-cut, I should say. So pieces 1, 3, 12, 11, and 10 are, I believe, were all from that single sheet. They're a little darker, right? They're going to lay into the background. I actually also used a ruler measuring off of the edge of the placement guide. Down here's my bottom corner, so I could look up here using this and I could see that I needed to cheat in about 1/4 of an inch this way. I had 4 inches over on this measurement here based on the edge from the dog to where piece number 7 began here. So you can see I've made some notes this month on my pattern, and I did measure it out the background so that I could place the tops of the tree parts. And then also I just kind of looked at these little gaps and the overlaps as I went through, and I individually worked the tree parts on top of the branches of the tree and the trunk of the tree, and it really turned out cool. There's a little flat part up here in one of the branches. It's a great like a key marker that'll allow you to know where to place that, and so that was super fun. I also went ahead, and as you can see here, like with my corgi, I have built the dogs to the part where I wanted to bring you all into the conversation. So that's where we're going to start today. I'm going to start heating up my dry iron for the final press, because I truly am that close, because I did take the time to use the applique sheet on top of the pattern and my bean bags here, just so things wouldn't shift around. So of course we've got everything cut out and stacked and organized by the labels provided on the pattern. So of course that's your first step, is you're going to go ahead and make sure that your labels and everything have been put on to the pieces. And then I'm going to use tweezers and maybe a stiletto. And of course my applique piece has been nice and cool now, and I'm going to start to peel it off slowly, making sure that everything's attached, because this is how I'm going to get the collar in here nice and accurate. Okay, so I've got all of my parts and pieces there basically, where I can now bring him in. But remember, I don't want to iron to the paper. So now I can go ahead and shift the dog off, still allowing the pressing sheet to come up underneath. And now I can place the dog where it needs to be, adding on the next ironing, and then I just won't iron anywhere down here where it's on the paper. Okay, that should give us what we need here, because I can see dog head all the way around. I need the torso underneath. So as I bring it in, I'm kind of shooting for the tip of that nose right there, top of the head, bringing the adjustment around so I have the ear in place. And I've mentioned before, I don't often put the eyeballs all the way in. It's just they're too small and too fine for this amount of work. And I want to show you this, folks. Now look, if you look carefully, and of course I've got things that are moving around a little bit, but I really, more so than getting everything aligned up perfect to the back of the pattern page, I want to make sure that that collar kind of touches the shoulder of the dog, right? I don't want to place anything that would look awkward later. So now that all that is really nice, I've got like a little miniature iron. This is the Clover mini iron, and it's blazing hot, and I'm just tacking, basically the collar part, the neck part, the ear part down to our Mastiff, I believe this guy is here. Making sure to be careful with that as it's hot. Let this piece cool for a little while. Okay, and then I can start to bring it in to the background, and his foot is basically just about on the edge of our placement guide. His tail goes over. So he's real close to the edge. And if my bench parts and everything don't line up completely, I don't want the dog to go missing, right? So now what I'm going to do, make sure that I've got the space required on top of the ironing mat so I can see what's going on. I'm going to adjust him up so he's not lost in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Adjust him over so he's not lost in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And this is what I'm working with now. I've already built the corgi, and the corgi's supposed to be standing on his back and also standing on this part of the bench. So it looks like I can still make it happen pretty good. I want to make sure I don't lose the corgi's nose. Oh, I see. The foot splits as it would. Okay, that helps. There we go. So I'm just going to also now adjust my corgi a little bit. He needs to have his feet on something, but I don't want his nose to get lost on the black of the iron work of the bench. So you see how I've just moved him over, and it really looks like he's standing on the hind legs of this Mastiff, and you can see now the other foot. Everything looks really good, right? Like that corgi is secure. Okay, so I haven't pressed it for the final pressing yet. I still might need to move my Mastiff over a little bit because of my 1/4 inch seams. Don't want to lose any of them. Okay, so any adjustment, I might need to adjust all my creatures. Okay, I'm still really liking the way that's looking. Fantastic. Now, we also have these 3D parts, B1, or excuse me, B2 and B2, like we've had before on some of the other animals where we have 3D parts. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build the bandana that's going to go inside of one of our cute little pups on the bench. And we're doing that by making sure that we get our shiny sides, our glue sides of the pieces together. So that's basically effectively putting the wrong sides of the fabric together. And because there's glue on both sides, they're going to be secured. Now, in the past, I've opened up a little bit of a space for that glue to come through so it will stick later. But on this particular month, the bandana is going to get caught between the neck and the torso, so I do not need to worry about that. You could also leave a little bit of extra there. So I'm just, again, pressing those 2 layers together. So now I have a 3-dimensional bandana, and maybe we'll need the light for that, but that's going to go right in here on our B dog. Okay, so I'm going to bring back in the setups of the dogs that were D and C that are built, as you can see here. And then I've got the head of my B dog. It should be like a rap name or something, right? Okay, and then I'm going to kind of eyeball in where this goes, the bandana. And then I'm going to, again, like before, using the outline of the pattern. So now I can see I need to sneak up the bandana a little bit because I want the glue from the underside of the head to catch and secure that bandana. So this is where tweezers come in real handy, folks. And again, always adjusting to what needs to be done to your applique more so than your pattern, as long as your eyes can still see the creatures that are forming. Once everybody's secure, again, I'm going to tack that using the ear space, the bandana space. And now technically this still should be 3-dimensional and it should be able to flop underneath there. Really cute, right? Now these creatures, after they cool, are going to get peeled off. And you can see they're kind of sitting in the middle of the bench here. So that gives me the opportunity to move them over here, just about wherever I need, maybe even to balance out everything a little bit. And I'm looking to see, I want the front paws kind of over here on this front railing where they would be sitting. Okay, and now as I look around and everything looks terrific. Oh, let's not forget to decorate our bush. We've got our one last flower. Again, iron is getting hot, but because, again, what I'm trying to teach you is if you start to see the layering process, some of this you can secure. I always say don't press anything until you know where everything goes. But like in this top piece, I knew that all my pieces were accounted for and none of these creatures were going to need the tree parts to come over the top of them. Therefore, I was able to press all of this first. And so I am actually going to press these before I tend to the bush. So with a hot, dry iron, I'm coming in here now, and because we have that heat and bond white on the back, about 4 seconds, press and lift. Because the union on the feet and all of this is so important here on my Corgi, I'm actually going to hit right here between the Corgi and the Mastiff. Then lifting, not sliding. And remember, folks, don't over iron. Heat and bond is probably one of the best that won't over iron too easily. But if you're using, for whatever reason, your own fabrics, then they're batiks. Those are notorious to over iron, as well as just overheating will just start to break down that glue. Okay? As this starts to cool, I'm going to shift it over so I can finish out my flower over here. And again, I could build this flower very easily on top of my pattern with the light table, remembering to peel off the paper as I go once I know where each piece will be located. And then I've also already pre-cut out the individual flowers, and I put the E flower with the E center and the D flower with the D center. And here's a trick maybe I can offer if you're kind of struggling. You can kind of roll at one of the corners. And then again, I find placement with the tweezers to be so much easier. I find something that's pretty obvious within the design, like the curl on the top of that leaf or flower, excuse me. And again, we're just getting close enough, folks. Oh, see how it's moving around? That's why the bean bags. Those bean bags help a lot. Some of the pieces have been too small for me even to use, so I'll take them and I'll pinch with the tweezer already in my hand. That way I guarantee I don't get the glue side on the up side. Nothing's going to lay over that white flower there, so I can secure its center and the flower to the stem. But in these three, we're going to build them all before, just like I was saying with the dogs on the bench on the shadow on the, the tree on the shadow, all that, knowing our layering, knowing our perspective. So because this one's furthest back, I'm going to start with C. That's another fun trick. You see how I'm kind of folding over now the Teflon sheet, rolling from the top down because I iron from the top down. Okay. Now, very simply, this is just going to drop right over here into its position. But again, if you wanted to be super accurate, this is what I was speaking of earlier. First, I'm going to go ahead and get it roughly where it needs to go. But then I can take my ruler and I can measure that from the corner over 3.5 is where I want it to start. So I come over here, 1, 2, 3. See, it really should have come over here closer. And now that I see that, I realize, oh yes, I wanted it closer to the iron bench to bring my eye over there close. So it'll end up there, and that's where I'll give it its final pressing. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and take and do a press and lift real quick. And I can feel that that's nice and warm, and it is done. And we are done for this month. And this is a super fun one. Okay. And again, I can also, as I went to lift it, I can see there's a little bit of a gap back here behind the Corgi. There's so many layers. I may need to may need to press it over again in that section, but not pressing everywhere else. And folks, if there is ever a spot that is loose on one of the applique blocks before you stitch it down for good, you can use a little bit of like a basting glue, or you could also use a safety pin or something just to secure it until we free motion machine quilt it. At the end of the project, all of these pieces will be secured with our needle and thread, whether it is free motion quilted, covered with a netting, however you want to do it, but we're still going to do that. And if you'll allow me, I'll take you through that process as well. So anyways, thank you for being here for this awesome dog park. month number 6, I believe it is. These are our awesome bench warmers. And if you would like to know more about our block of the months, check us out over at stitchinheaven.com. We've got a ton of choices for all of you. Thanks for joining me here. Make sure you're participating in that Facebook, and we'll see you real soon.